This morning, when I drove into the hospital, I noted how full the hospital courtyard was, with families who had sought refuge inside the hospital, thinking that it would be a safe haven. It's these very same families who are now either dead or critically wounded as a result of this attack. This is a war crime that the world has seen coming. Israel has been warning the entire world that it was going to attack Palestinian hospitals, and it did exactly that. Every Western politician who has declared unconditional support for Israel's war effort on the Palestinian people has the blood of these children on their hands. That unconditional support is what led us to this massacre. The impunity that Israel believes it has from its Western allies is what has led to this massacre. No other country feels the impunity to target hospitals and get away with it. What happened today is a war crime, and if the Israelis get away with it again, then more war crimes will be committed and more hospitals will be targeted. I heard an almighty shriek, followed by a large explosion. Part of the ceiling of the operating room fell. As I stumbled outside the operating room department towards the emergency department, I could see the wounded being carried towards us and to the emergency department. And there were bodies lying lifeless on the ground. When I got to the emergency department, they were wounded in the hundreds. Some had amputated limbs. Some had very severe injuries. As I was walking through the courtyard, you could see bodies all over the courtyard and amputated parts of bodies all over the courtyard. The number of dead is well over 300. The number of wounded is the same. The overwhelming majority are very severe injuries. These are people who I noticed when I drove into the hospital who'd sought refuge in the courtyard. There were families sitting around the courtyard of the hospital. The number of wounded is further overwhelming the system here. These wounded all have needed intensive care facilities and ventilators.
You can see here the strike did indeed appear to hit the parking lot of the hospital. And one of the things that Israel came out and said was that they said, no, this wasn't one of our warplanes. Instead, this was a failed rocket attack by, I think it's the Islamic Jihad organization, so a sort of competitor political party to Hamas. But what I thought was noteworthy is that, first, you look at this, you can't even really tell for sure where it looks like the actual rocket hit right about here, but you can see that literally if you were in a car like 15 feet away, you'd probably get your bell rung, right? You'd probably be concussed, but you wouldn't actually be killed, right? You'd be injured. And you could see that while these cars, some of them caught fire and burned down quite a bit, the buildings around this hospital are almost entirely intact. I mean, look, the rocket struck here, and this building doesn't even appear to have its windows blown out. This looks completely intact. And the reason I point this out is because this is not the explosion you would expect to see from an Israeli warplane.